Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Nature Channel. Tonight, let's breathe together with the earth itself. Find a comfortable place to rest. Let your shoulders drop and take one slow breath in and out. Good. Tonight, we're going to explore something beautiful and gentle. The way our planet breathes, the way it moves in rhythms so ancient and soft that they cradle everything alive. No rush, no worry, just you and the quiet pulse of the world beneath your feet. Imagine standing barefoot on warm soil. Beneath you, deeper than you can see, the earth is breathing, not with lungs like yours, but with movements so vast and gentle they measure time in seasons, in tides, in the slow opening of flowers. You're part of this rhythm. Right now, as you breathe, you're breathing with forests and oceans, with mountains and meadows. Let that thought settle around you like a soft blanket. The first breath of earth happens in the soil. Every handful of earth contains billions of tiny living things, and they're breathing too. As they break down fallen leaves and old wood, they release carbon dioxide into the spaces between soil particles. It's like the ground itself is exhaling so gently you'd never notice unless you were very, very still. This breath feeds the roots of plants, who take it in and transform it into something new. Tree roots breathe underground. They draw in oxygen through tiny root hairs, so delicate they're almost invisible. At night, when the forest is dark and quiet, the roots are still working, still breathing, creating a soft exchange with the soil around them. If you placed your hand on the earth in a forest, you'd be touching this invisible conversation. Roots speaking to soil, soil answering back. The Amazon rainforest breathes out so much moisture that it creates its own weather. Every day, the trees pull water up from deep in the ground, and their leaves release it into the air as vapor. It's like the forest is exhaling clouds. This breath rises, cools, and becomes rain, which falls back down to feed the trees again. A circle, soft and endless, like your own breathing right now. Oceans breathe too, though their rhythm is slower than yours. The surface of the sea absorbs oxygen from the air. About half of all the oxygen you're breathing right now came from the ocean. Tiny plants called phytoplankton, so small you could hold millions in your hand, float near the surface, and create this oxygen as they drink in sunlight. The ocean exhales life with every wave. At night, when the sun sets, phytoplankton slow down their work. The ocean's breath becomes quieter, gentler, but it never stops. Even in darkness, even in the deepest cold, the water continues its soft exchange with the air above. Oxygen sinking down, carbon dioxide rising up, in a rhythm as old as the sea itself. Kelp forests sway with the ocean's breathing. These tall underwater plants, some stretching longer than the tallest trees on land, bend and move with the currents. As water flows through their fronds, they absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen into the surrounding sea. Fish swim through this breath, and seals rest in it. The whole forest breathes as one. Wetlands are the earth's lungs in slow motion. Marshes and swamps breathe in a special way. They store carbon for centuries in their soft, wet soil. Dead plants sink into the water, and instead of breaking down quickly, they rest there, holding their carbon like a held breath. This is how the earth keeps itself cool, how it balances, how it finds peace. Rice paddies, created by human hands, breathe in rhythm with the seasons. When farmers flood the fields, the soil beneath the water begins a different kind of breathing. Microbes that don't need oxygen take over, creating methane instead. Then, when the fields are drained and dry, oxygen-breathing microbes return. The paddies breathe in and out with the floods, with the harvest, with the passage of time. Grasslands breathe with the wind. Picture a meadow on a breezy day. The grass bends, rises, bends again. With each movement, carbon dioxide settles around the leaves, and with each still moment, the grass absorbs it. The breathing happens in the spaces between gusts, in the quiet seconds when everything pauses. The grass knows how to wait, how to take what it needs gently. At dawn, meadows take their deepest breath. As the sun touches the grass, the plants open their stomata, tiny mouths on their leaves, and begin pulling in carbon dioxide. You can almost feel it if you lie in a field early in the morning. The whole meadow waking up, drinking in the cool air, preparing for the day. It's the same gentle awakening you feel when you first open your eyes. The tundra breathes very slowly. In the far north, where the ground freezes for most of the year, plants take months to do what tropical plants do in days. When the brief summer comes, mosses and lichens absorb carbon dioxide so carefully, so patiently. They know they have only a short window of warmth. Their breath is quiet but determined, soft but steady. Permafrost holds the Earth's oldest breath. Frozen soil in the Arctic has trapped carbon for thousands of years. Plants and animals from ancient times, preserved in the ice like a memory. This frozen breath stays still, waiting. As long as it remains cold, it remains quiet. The tundra keeps this old air safe, a gift from the distant past. Deserts breathe mostly at night. During the scorching day, most desert plants close their stomata to save water. But when darkness comes and the air cools, cacti and succulents open up and begin their slow breathing. They take in carbon dioxide under the stars, storing it until the sun returns. It's a patient rhythm, suited to a patient land. The saguaro cactus, tall and ancient, breathes so slowly you could spend a lifetime beside one and never notice. It stores water in its thick skin, and it stores carbon dioxide in its cells at night, processing it during the day when its stomata are closed. This cactus has learned to hold its breath in a way, to wait, to make the most of very little. Coral reefs breathe in partnership. The coral animals and the tiny algae living inside them share one breath between them. During the day, the algae use sunlight to make oxygen, which the coral breathes. At night, the coral breathes out carbon dioxide, which the algae will use when the sun returns. They take turns like dance partners, each one supporting the other. When you watch waves roll over a reef, you're watching the ocean delivering fresh breath to the coral. Each wave brings new water, rich with dissolved oxygen, washing over the reef and giving the coral what it needs. The reef breathes with the rhythm of the waves, steady, endless, soft as sleep. Mountains breathe through their forests. On the slopes of high peaks, trees grow slower than their cousins in the valleys. They breathe more carefully in the thin air, taking their time with each exchange of gases. The forests on mountains are old and patient. They've learned to work with less, to appreciate each breath as something precious. Alpine meadows, those bright patches of flowers high above the tree line, breathe in the brief summer with intensity. For just a few months, these meadows come alive, absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen as fast as they can. Then winter returns, and they rest beneath the snow, holding their breath until spring comes around again. It's a rhythm of intensity and rest, like your own heartbeat after a long walk, fast, then gradually slowing, settling into peace. Perhaps now would be a good time to take a deeper breath yourself. Feel how natural it is, how easy. If you're enjoying this gentle journey, a like would mean the world. It helps others find these peaceful moments too. And there are more stories like this waiting for you in our playlist whenever you need them. The earth breathes with you right now in this moment. Your rhythm and its rhythm are one and the same. Peat bogs breathe in layers of time. These soft, waterlogged places store carbon deeper than almost anywhere else on land. Each year, new moss grows on top of old moss, and the old layers sink down into the water below, where they breathe so slowly they almost stop. Some peat is thousands of years old, still holding carbon from trees that fell before human civilizations began. The bog remembers every breath. When you walk across a bog, the ground bounces gently beneath your feet. You're walking on layers of breathing history, on compressed plants that once reached toward the sun. The water between these layers is dark and still, holding ancient air in its depths. If you stand very quietly on a bog, you might feel it, that sense of deep time, of breath held for centuries. Mangrove forests breathe between two worlds. Their roots reach down into salty water, while their leaves breathe the coastal air above. These trees have special roots that stick up out of the water like snorkels, bringing oxygen down to the parts that are submerged. It's a clever breath, adapted to a place where land and sea meet and mingle. At high tide, the mangrove's breath becomes quieter. Their snorkel roots are covered by water, but the trees have learned to hold enough oxygen inside to wait until the tide retreats. They breathe with the rhythm of the moon, with the pull of gravity on the ocean. Twice a day, every day, in a pattern as reliable as your own sleeping and waking. Seagrass meadows breathe underwater, creating oxygen that dissolves directly into the sea. These gentle plants, swaying in the current, look like prairie grass, but live entirely beneath the waves. Fish swim through clouds of oxygen released from seagrass leaves. The whole meadow glows with life, with breath, with soft green light filtered through water. When a sea turtle rests in a seagrass bed, it's resting in the ocean's breath. The oxygen around it was just created by the plants beneath it. This is the earth's generosity, breath shared freely, life supporting life, everything connected in one quiet exchange. Bamboo forests breathe faster than almost any plant on earth. Bamboo grows so quickly, you can almost see it moving, and all that growth requires tremendous breathing. A bamboo grove absorbs carbon dioxide at an astonishing rate, pulling it from the air and locking it into its fast-growing stems. The forest exhales oxygen in return, creating air so fresh it almost sparkles. In the early morning, when mist hangs in a bamboo forest, you can see the moisture from the bamboo's breath. The plants release water vapor from their leaves, and in the cool morning air, it becomes visible. Soft white clouds rising between the green stems. The whole forest appears to be breathing out mist, creating its own gentle fog. Old growth forests breathe differently than young ones. Ancient trees, hundreds of years old, have learned a slow and steady rhythm. They don't rush. They take in carbon dioxide at their own pace, store it in their massive trunks, and release oxygen with the patience of something that has seen centuries pass. There's wisdom in their breathing, a calmness that you can feel when you stand among them. The canopy of a rainforest breathes in layers. The tallest trees, reaching for the sky, breathe the bright sunlight. Below them, middle-story trees breathe in dappled light. And down on the forest floor, shade-loving plants breathe in the green dimness. Each layer has its own rhythm, but together they create one great breath, one forest inhaling and exhaling as a whole. Epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants, breathe the air high in the treetops. Orchids, ferns, and mosses cling to branches, their roots dangling in the humid air. They've never touched the ground, but they breathe just fine up there in the canopy, absorbing moisture from mist and rain, taking in carbon dioxide from the wind that flows through the branches. Clouds themselves are part of Earth's breathing. Water vapor rises from oceans, forests, and lakes, breathed out by the planet's surface. This vapor cools as it rises, forming clouds that drift across the sky. Then the clouds release their moisture as rain, which falls back to the earth and is breathed out again by plants and water. It's a circle of breath, vapor to water to vapor, never ending. When you watch clouds drift overhead, you're watching water that was recently breathed out by a forest, or evaporated from a lake, or released from the surface of the ocean. Those clouds are made of countless breaths, all joined together, floating peacefully across the sky before returning to Earth as rain. Fog is the earth breathing close to the ground. In valleys and along coasts, moisture breathed out by plants, and water meets cool air and becomes visible. Fog rolls in like a soft blanket, touching everything gently, carrying the scent of the earth and sea. Walking through fog feels like moving through the planet's own quiet exhalation. Redwood trees create their own fog. In the forests along the California coast, these massive trees, some of the tallest living things on Earth, help moisture from the ocean condense into fog. Their canopy cools the air and droplets form. Then the fog drips from their needles, watering the forest floor below. The trees breathe in water from the sky they helped create. In autumn, deciduous trees prepare for a different kind of breathing. As the days grow shorter, the trees slowly close down their summer breath. They stop pulling in as much carbon dioxide, stop releasing as much oxygen. The green in their leaves fades, revealing yellows and reds that were there all along, hidden. The trees are getting ready to rest, to breathe more quietly through the winter. When leaves fall, they carry carbon down to the soil. Each leaf that drifts to the ground is like a small gift, nutrients and stored carbon returning to the earth. Fungi and bacteria in the soil will slowly breathe this carbon back out over the winter, completing the cycle. Nothing is wasted. Every breath has a purpose, a place to go. Snow-covered forests breathe very slowly. Beneath the white blanket, the trees are still alive, still exchanging tiny amounts of oxygen and carbon dioxide. But the pace has slowed to almost nothing. The forest is resting, saving its energy, waiting for spring. Its breath is so quiet you'd need special instruments to detect it, but it's there, patient, peaceful, still. Pine trees breathe all winter long. Unlike deciduous trees, evergreens keep their needles and continue their slow exchange of gases even in the cold. On a sunny winter day, if you stand in a pine forest, you might smell that fresh, sharp scent. That's the trees breathing, releasing compounds into the air, even as snow lies thick on the ground. If you're still awake and enjoying this peaceful journey, I'd love it if you'd leave a comment. Maybe share where you're listening from. Or what part of nature helps you feel most calm? And don't forget, there's a whole playlist of these gentle stories waiting for you whenever you need them. The earth keeps breathing through every season, every change, every moment of stillness. And so do you. Lichens breathe on rocks where nothing else can live. These small partnerships between fungi and algae cling to bare stone, absorbing carbon dioxide directly from the air and releasing oxygen into the wind. They grow so slowly that some lichens are hundreds of years old, no bigger than your palm. But they've been breathing that whole time, patient and persistent, turning rock into soil grain by grain. In the high mountains, where the air is thin and cold, lichens are sometimes the only living things breathing. They coat boulders in patches of green, gray, and orange, creating tiny islands of life in a landscape of stone. Each patch is breathing ever so gently, adding oxygen to the thin mountain air. Moss breathes without roots in the traditional sense. These soft green carpets that cover forest floors and old logs don't pull water up from deep in the ground. Instead, they absorb moisture directly through their leaves, and they breathe through those same leaves, taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen right at the surface. A moss-covered forest floor is like a living green lung close to the earth, soft underfoot. After rain, moss breathes most deeply. When water soaks into the tiny leaves, the moss swells and becomes vibrant green, and its breathing quickens. You can almost see it come alive, expanding with moisture, processing light and air with renewed energy. Then, as it dries, its breathing slows again, settling back into patience until the next rain comes. Ferns unfurl their new fronds in a spiral, and as they do, they begin to breathe more actively. Those tightly coiled baby ferns, called fiddleheads, are storing energy, waiting. When they finally unroll and spread their delicate leaves to the light, they start absorbing carbon dioxide in earnest. Each frond is like a lung opening, ready to exchange breath with the forest air. River stones, smooth and cool, are touched by the breath of water. Though the stones themselves don't breathe, the algae and microscopic life that coat their surfaces do. These tiny communities breathe underwater, creating small amounts of oxygen that dissolve into the flowing river. The water carries this breath downstream, spreading it for miles, all the way to the sea. Waterfalls add extra oxygen to rivers. When water tumbles over rocks and crashes into the pool below, it mixes with air, absorbing oxygen into the water. This is the river taking a deep breath, filling itself with life. Fish gather in the oxygenated water below waterfalls, swimming in the river's renewed breath. At night, photosynthesis stops, but breathing continues. Plants keep absorbing oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide all through the dark hours, just like you do. The forest breathes differently at night, quieter, slower, but steady. If you walk through woods after sunset, you're moving through this gentle nighttime exhalation, this peaceful exchange that never stops. Fireflies light up using oxygen. Their glow is actually a form of breathing. They combine oxygen with other chemicals in their bodies to create light. On a summer evening, a meadow full of fireflies is a meadow breathing light into the darkness, each flash a tiny pulse of life, of air, transformed into something beautiful. Soil organisms breathe in total darkness. Deep beneath your feet, earthworms, beetles, and billions of microscopic creatures are taking in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide. They're part of the same breath you take, the same cycle, even though they'll never see the sun. The earth beneath you is alive with quiet breathing. Mushrooms breathe, though they have no leaves. These fungi absorb oxygen directly through their surfaces and release carbon dioxide as they break down dead wood and leaves. A forest floor covered in mushrooms is breathing in 1,000 small ways, each mushroom doing its part to recycle nutrients and keep the soil alive. Mycorrhizal fungi breathe in partnership with tree roots. These tiny threads of fungus wrap around root tips underground, helping trees absorb water and nutrients. In exchange, the trees share sugars with the fungi, and both are breathing together underground, creating a network of life and breath that connects entire forests. Prairie dogs dig burrows that help the soil breathe. Their tunnels allow air to flow deep into the earth, bringing oxygen to roots and soil creatures that would otherwise be trapped in dense, compressed ground. The prairies breathe better because of these small architects, these diggers who create pathways for air. Termites, building their tall mounds in warm climates, design them for breathing. The structure of a termite mound creates natural ventilation. Warm air rises through the center and escapes through the top, while cool air is drawn in through tunnels at the base. The whole mound breathes like a lung, keeping the termites inside supplied with fresh air. Earthworms pull leaves underground, where bacteria will breathe them back into soil. This is another kind of breathing, decomposition. As bacteria break down the leaves, they release carbon dioxide into the soil, which plant roots can use. The earthworm helps this breath happen faster, mixing organic matter with soil, keeping the underground world alive. Coral atolls are circles of breathing life in the middle of the ocean. The ring of coral, the lagoon inside, the small sandy islands, all of it is created by countless organisms, breathing, growing, living in partnership. The atoll itself is shaped by breath, by the slow accumulation of calcium carbonate skeletons built by coral polyps that spent their lives breathing and growing. The sand on a tropical beach might be made partly of parrotfish breath. These colorful fish eat coral and algae, digest what they need, and excrete the rest as fine white sand. They're part of the reef's breathing cycle, eating, processing, releasing. Over time, their breath becomes beaches, beautiful evidence of life's transformations. Whales breathe at the surface, then hold their breath for incredibly long dives. A blue whale might hold its breath for 20 minutes, swimming through the deep with oxygen stored in its muscles and blood. When it finally surfaces, its exhale shoots a tall spout of mist into the air, a fountain of held breath released all at once. That whale's breath fertilizes the ocean. When whales defecate near the surface, their waste is rich in nutrients, especially iron. This feeds phytoplankton, which breathe out oxygen and feed small animals, which feed larger animals. One whale's breath supports countless other breaths in a cascade of life. If you're feeling peaceful right now, if this gentle rhythm is helping you relax, a like on this video would mean so much. It helps others find their way to this calm place too. Breathe with the earth. Feel how you're part of something much larger, much older, much more peaceful than any single worry or thought. Volcanic vents on the ocean floor breathe out minerals and heat. These hydrothermal vents spew water heated by the Earth's core, water rich with chemicals from deep within the planet. Strange bacteria gather around these vents, breathing in sulfur compounds instead of oxygen, creating energy from the Earth's deep exhalation. Life finds a way to breathe even in the darkest, most unlikely places. Above these deep-sea vents, tube worms sway in the current, bright red against the black water. They have no mouths, no stomachs, but they breathe through their feathery plumes. They take in oxygen and sulfur compounds and share them with bacteria living inside their bodies. Together, worm and bacteria breathe, creating life where the sun never reaches. Kelp holdfasts anchor to rocks, and from there, the whole plant reaches upward toward light and air. Though the kelp is underwater, it still needs to exchange gases, taking in carbon dioxide dissolved in seawater and releasing oxygen back. The holdfasts don't breathe, but they hold steady while the rest of the plant does its work, swaying in the currents, processing water and light into life. Sea otters wrap themselves in kelp to sleep. Floating on their backs at the surface, they anchor themselves to the kelp forest so they won't drift away. As they rest, they breathe the air above the water, while the kelp beneath them breathes the water itself. Two different kinds of breath, peaceful together, otter and plant, resting in the same gentle current. Estuaries breathe with the mixing of fresh and salt water. Where rivers meet the sea, the water is rich with nutrients from both, and life breathes abundantly. Salt marsh grasses breathe in the brackish water, their roots adapted to the changing salinity. Twice a day, with the tides, the estuary's breathing rhythm changes, more salty, then less, then more again. Salt-tolerant plants breathe out excess salt through special glands on their leaves. You can sometimes see tiny salt crystals on marsh grass sparkling in the sun, evidence of the plant's breath, its way of processing a challenging environment. These plants have learned to breathe even where most others cannot, turning difficulty into small diamonds of salt. Sand dunes breathe in their way. Wind carries air through the spaces between sand grains, and in those spaces, tiny organisms live and breathe. Bacteria and microscopic fungi process bits of organic matter blown onto the dunes, breathing out carbon dioxide that escapes into the wind. The dune looks still, but it's alive with invisible breath. Desert plants breathe at night to save water, but cacti flowers often bloom after dark too. A night-blooming cereus opens its petals under the stars, releasing fragrance into the cool air. Moths visit these flowers, breathing in the scent, carrying pollen from bloom to bloom. The desert breathes most beautifully when the sun is gone and the air is soft. The Atacama Desert, one of the driest places on Earth, still breathes. Lichens and specialized bacteria live here, absorbing moisture from fog that rolls in from the Pacific Ocean. They breathe so carefully, so sparingly, making use of every tiny bit of water. Their breath is proof that life persists, even in the harshest places, quiet and determined. Antarctica's dry valleys are even more extreme. Here, some scientists believe certain bacteria breathe by consuming hydrogen gas from tiny cracks in the rocks. These microbes might be among the most patient breathers on Earth, surviving in conditions that seem impossible, showing us that breath takes many forms. But even these extremes lead back to the familiar. Migrating birds fly over deserts and mountains, breathing rapidly to power their long journeys. Their breath connects lush forests to barren landscapes, carrying oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. Their bodies moving through Earth's atmosphere like living rhythms. Arctic terns migrate from pole to pole, breathing the air of both ends of the earth in a single year. They experience 2 summers, flying through endless light, their small lungs working steadily as they cross oceans and continents. Their breath is a bridge between north and south, a living connection across the globe. Monarch butterflies migrate thousands of miles, their breathing so efficient that their tiny bodies can sustain hours of flight. They breathe through spiracles, small openings along their bodies, and this breath powers wings so delicate they seem impossible. Yet they cross mountains and prairies, breathing steadily, determined, beautiful. Hummingbirds breathe faster than almost any other animal. Their hearts beat over 1,000 times per minute when they're flying, and their breathing matches that incredible pace. They take in oxygen and use it immediately, burning energy so quickly they must eat constantly. Their breath is rapid, intense, a blur of life. But at night, hummingbirds slow down. They enter a state called torpor, where their breathing and heartbeat drop dramatically. They rest on a branch, barely moving, conserving energy until dawn. Even these quickest breathers know when to rest, when to slow their rhythm to almost nothing. Sloths, on the other hand, breathe very slowly all the time. Their metabolism is so relaxed that they take only a few breaths per minute. Hanging in the trees, moving through the canopy at their own gentle pace, they breathe just enough. They don't rush. They've learned that slow breathing is enough for the life they've chosen to live. Trees in the sloth's forest breathe faster, but not by much. The tropical rainforest is warm and humid, conditions that slow things down. The trees breathe steadily, processing the abundant carbon dioxide in the thick air, releasing oxygen into the canopy where sloths and birds and countless insects live and breathe together. Bromeliads grow on tree branches, collecting water in their central cups. These little pools become tiny ecosystems. Insects live in them, frogs lay eggs in them, and all these creatures breathe in the water and air trapped in the plant. The bromeliad itself breathes too, through its leaves, absorbing moisture from the humid air. The water cycle is Earth's longest breath. Water evaporates from the ocean, rises into the sky, forms clouds, falls as rain, flows through rivers back to the sea. This movement carries oxygen, nutrients, and life. It's a breath that takes days or weeks to complete, but it never stops, never tires. Glaciers store water that fell as snow decades or centuries ago. This ancient frozen breath waits in the ice, preserving air bubbles from the past. When the glacier slowly melts, it releases water that will flow to the sea and eventually evaporate again, joining the present breath of the world after a long, cold rest. Don't forget to check out our full playlist whenever you need more peaceful moments like this one. And if you'd like to leave a comment about what brings you peace, I'd love to read it. The earth breathes in cycles, some quick, some slow, all of them beautiful. Rest in that rhythm now. Icebergs calve from glaciers with a crack like thunder, then float away on the ocean currents. As they drift into warmer waters, they slowly melt, releasing ancient freshwater and tiny bubbles of prehistoric air into the sea. Each iceberg is a package of old breath finally exhaled after thousands of years of waiting. Penguins gather on ice floes, breathing the cold Antarctic air. Their breath is visible as mist in the freezing temperatures, small clouds that disappear quickly into the wind. They breathe efficiently, conserving heat, their bodies perfectly adapted to one of Earth's coldest places. Seals breathe in a rhythm matched to their diving. On the ice, they breathe deeply, filling their lungs and bloodstream with oxygen. Then they slip into the water and hold their breath, swimming beneath the ice for minutes at a time. When they surface through a breathing hole, their exhale is explosive, a fountain of mist and relief. The Southern Ocean breathes by churning. Powerful currents mix surface water with deep water, and this mixing brings nutrients from the depths up to the light, where phytoplankton can use them. The whole ocean is breathing through circulation, through movement, through the mixing of layers. Antarctic krill breathe the oxygen produced by phytoplankton. These tiny shrimp-like creatures exist in such enormous numbers that they collectively breathe in vast amounts of oxygen and exhale vast amounts of carbon dioxide. They're a living link between the ocean's breath and everything that depends on them: whales, seals, penguins, seabirds. Blue whales filter krill through their baleen, eating tons of them every day. The breath of krill becomes the breath of whales, the largest animals ever to exist on Earth. A blue whale's lungs are so large that its breath contains enough air to fill hundreds of party balloons. When it surfaces and blows, you can hear the exhale from far away, a deep, powerful release. The whale's dive pushes oxygen through its body in waves. Its heart slows to conserve energy, directing blood flow to essential organs. The whale's muscles store oxygen in myoglobin, letting it stay underwater for half an hour or more. The whole body becomes a system for holding and using breath, for making one lungful last as long as possible. When the whale surfaces, it breathes several times in quick succession, recharging its oxygen stores. Then down it goes again, into the deep blue, into the quiet world, where breath is precious and must be used wisely. The whale teaches us about the value of breath, about patience, about surfacing when we need to. Albatrosses breathe while gliding. These enormous seabirds can fly for hours without flapping their wings, riding the wind currents over the Southern Ocean. Their breathing is steady and calm, even as they soar, their lungs working efficiently to power their long journeys. They barely touch land except to breed, spending most of their lives breathing the salt air over the waves. Petrels skim the ocean surface, breathing the boundary between water and air. This thin layer of atmosphere, just above the waves, is where they hunt and fly, where they spend their days. They breathe air that carries the scent of the sea, air heavy with moisture and salt, air that tastes of fish and freedom. The Arctic tundra breathes differently than the Antarctic. Here, in summer, the top layer of soil thaws while the ground beneath stays frozen. Plants grow quickly in the brief warm season, breathing in carbon dioxide and growing as fast as they can before winter returns. The tundra's breath is seasonal, intense and alive for a few months, then still and quiet for the rest of the year. Cotton grass spreads across the tundra in white, fluffy tufts. These aren't actually grass, but sedges, and they breathe rapidly during the short summer, converting sunlight and carbon dioxide into seeds and roots. The white fluff is made of hairs that will carry the seeds on the wind, spreading the plant's future breaths across the landscape. Caribou migrate across the tundra, their breath forming clouds in the cold air. They breathe hard as they walk, thousands of them moving together, their hooves clicking their breath joining into a mist that hangs over the herd. They're moving to find food, following routes their ancestors walked, breathing the same air, part of a cycle as old as the tundra itself. Arctic foxes breathe warmth into their dens. In winter, they curl up tight, wrapping their bushy tails around their noses, breathing into the insulating fur to stay warm. Their breath creates a small warm space in the freezing world, a pocket of life in the ice and snow. Snowy owls breathe silently. Their feathers are specially adapted for quiet flight, allowing them to hunt lemmings without being heard. They breathe slowly, conserving energy, waiting on a perch or flying low over the snow. When they catch prey, their breathing quickens briefly with the effort, then slows again to stillness. The aurora borealis dances in the upper atmosphere where air is very thin. Though this light show isn't breathing in a traditional sense, it's caused by solar wind, streams of particles from the sun, colliding with Earth's atmosphere. It's like the planet is breathing in sunlight and exhaling rainbows, curtains of green and pink shimmering in the polar night. Under the aurora, the tundra breathes quietly, plants dormant under snow, animals huddled in burrows, ice and rock and frozen soil, all waiting for spring. The breath of life has slowed to almost nothing, but it hasn't stopped. It's resting, gathering strength, preparing for renewal. In the boreal forests south of the tundra, spruce trees breathe through winter. Their dark green needles continue photosynthesis even in the cold, though much more slowly than in summer. Snow piles on their branches, but underneath the needles are still working, still breathing, still alive. Moose browse on willow bushes, breathing clouds of steam into the winter forest. These massive animals need enormous amounts of food to fuel their large bodies, and they breathe heavily as they wade through snow, searching for twigs and bark to eat. Their breath joins the forest's breath, warm life in the cold world. Wolves howl into the night, and their breath carries the sound across miles of forest. When a pack howls together, you're hearing their breath made into music, into communication, into a declaration that they exist. They're alive. They're breathing together as a family. If you've been enjoying this slow journey through the Earth's breathing, I'd be grateful if you'd give this video a like. It helps the algorithm share this peaceful content with more people who need it. And remember, there's a whole collection of these gentle stories in the playlist. Everything breathes. Everything moves in rhythm. You're part of this. Always have been. Always will be. Beavers build dams, and behind those dams, ponds form where the water breathes more slowly. The still water absorbs oxygen from the air at its surface and from aquatic plants growing in its depths. Dragonflies breed in these ponds, their larvae breathing underwater through gills, then emerging as adults to breathe air and dance above the water on iridescent wings. The beaver's lodge has a breathing hole at the top. Inside, the family lives in a chamber above the water level, breathing air that enters through this hidden vent. The lodge is warm from the beaver's body heat, and their breath condenses on the walls of their home. Outside, ice might cover the pond, but inside, the beavers breathe comfortably in their wooden castle. Trout breathe in streams by facing upstream. The flowing water passes over their gills, and they extract oxygen from it efficiently. A stream full of trout is a stream being breathed, the fish drawing life from the water, molecule by molecule. They rest behind rocks where the current is gentler, breathing easily, waiting for insects to drift by. Mayflies spend years breathing underwater as nymphs, then emerge for just a day or two as adults. In their brief adult life, they don't even eat. They just breathe, fly, mate, and lay eggs. Their entire adult existence is like one long breath, intense and fleeting, before they fall to the water's surface and become food for the trout below. Salmon swim upstream to spawn, breathing hard against the current. Their gills work overtime, extracting every bit of oxygen they can from the rushing water. They leap waterfalls, their bodies arching through the air, briefly not breathing at all, then crashing back into the water where they can breathe again. Their determination is written in every breath. After spawning, Pacific salmon die, and their bodies feed the forest. Bears drag salmon carcasses into the trees, and the nutrients from the ocean, carried by the salmon, decay into the soil. The forest breathes in these nutrients, growing stronger. Trees near salmon streams grow faster than those far away, nourished by this gift from the sea. Bears breathe slowly in winter hibernation. Their heart rate drops. Their breathing becomes shallow and infrequent, and they survive for months without eating, drinking, or waking. They're breathing, but barely, suspended between sleep and waking, waiting for spring to arrive and call them back to the world. Inside the bear's den, cubs might be born in the middle of winter. The mother, still hibernating, gives birth and nurses her cubs in a dreaming state. The cubs breathe their first breaths in darkness and warmth, curled against their mother, their tiny lungs filling and emptying while snow falls outside. Spring arrives, and the forest's breath quickens. Trees begin to draw water up from the soil, their sap rising. Buds swell on branches, and when they open, new leaves emerge and begin to breathe, tentatively at first, then more strongly as they unfurl and spread to catch the sun. Warblers return from the south, their small bodies breathing rapidly as they sing. These tiny birds have flown thousands of miles, and now they fill the forest with song, each note powered by a breath, each breath shared with the trees around them. Their singing is another kind of breathing, communication carried on air. Ferns unfurl their fiddleheads in the damp understory. As each frond opens, it begins to breathe more actively, absorbing carbon dioxide from the shaded air beneath the trees. The forest floor becomes a carpet of breathing green, each fern doing its small part to cycle air through the woods. Mushrooms appear after spring rains, breathing out spores by the billions. These reproductive cells drift on the slightest breeze, each one tiny enough to float on air currents, each one capable of starting a new fungus if it lands in the right place. The mushroom's breath is made of possibility, of future life scattered on the wind. Flowering plants breathe through their blossoms as well as their leaves. The petals of a flower have stomata too, exchanging gases, taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. A meadow in full bloom is breathing through 1,000,000 flowers, each one adding its color and scent to the air, making the whole world sweeter. Bees breathe through spiracles along their bodies as they fly from flower to flower. Their wings beat hundreds of times per second, requiring tremendous energy and oxygen. They breathe in flight, their small bodies processing air efficiently, gathering nectar and pollen while adding their own breath to the conversation between plant and pollinator. Inside the hive, thousands of bees breathe together, and their collective breath can heat the hive. In winter, bees cluster together, vibrating their flight muscles to generate warmth, breathing out heat that keeps the queen and the colony alive. Their breathing becomes warming, their exhalation a gift of survival. Honeycomb cells store honey, but they also allow air to circulate through the hive. Bees fan their wings to move air through the colony, creating ventilation, keeping the atmosphere inside fresh and healthy. The whole hive breathes through the work of many, a collective respiration. Ants breathe through their exoskeletons too, through tiny spiracles. An anthill might contain 1 million individuals, all breathing, all contributing their minute exhalations to the air around the colony. The anthill itself has ventilation shafts built into its structure, allowing fresh air to reach the chambers deep underground. Underground ant colonies can extend many feet into the soil. In the darkness, workers move through tunnels, tending larvae, storing food, breathing steadily. They've never seen the sun, but they're breathing the same oxygen you breathe, connected to the surface world by the air that flows through their tunnels. Soil aeration happens partly because of these tunnels. Ants, earthworms, and other burrowing creatures create pathways that let air penetrate deep into the ground. This helps plant roots breathe and supports the countless microorganisms that make soil alive and fertile. The ground breathes better because of these small engineers. Beetles breathe as they burrow under bark, laying eggs in dead wood. Their larvae will breathe in the darkness inside the log, slowly eating the wood, turning it into sawdust and frass. Bacteria and fungi will breathe on this frass, breaking it down further until the log has become soil and its carbon has been released and absorbed again by growing trees. Take a moment now, if you'd like, to leave a comment sharing what part of nature you find most calming. I love hearing from you, and it builds a lovely community here. The breath of decay becomes the breath of growth. Nothing ends. It all just transforms, cycles, continues. Carpenter ants hollow out galleries in rotting logs, and these spaces fill with air. Tiny mites and springtails live in these galleries, breathing the humid air, feeding on fungal threads that also need to breathe. One log holds dozens of small breathing worlds, layered and interconnected. Tree sap flows upward in spring, but the tree doesn't breathe through its sapwood. Instead, it breathes through lenticels, small pores in the bark, and through its leaves. The sap carries water and nutrients, but air travels a different route, diffusing through bark and branches to reach living cells throughout the tree. You can see lenticels on birch bark as horizontal lines. These breathing pores let oxygen in and carbon dioxide out, allowing the living tissue beneath the bark to respire even in winter when there are no leaves. The tree breathes through its skin, in a way, staying alive even when it looks dormant. Cherry blossoms bloom for just a week or two, and during that time, they breathe brilliantly. The trees put tremendous energy into their flowers, breathing rapidly to fuel this display. Then, the petals fall like pink snow, and the tree's breathing becomes focused on leaves instead, on growing fruit, on the slower work of summer. Each fallen petal continues to breathe for a little while, its cells still alive, still processing oxygen. Then, gradually it stops, and decomposers take over, breathing on the petal's remains, recycling its nutrients back into the soil. Even in death, the breath continues, just transferred to other living things. Lily pads float on ponds, their large flat leaves spread to catch maximum light. Underneath each pad, there's often a bubble of air trapped against the water's surface. Small aquatic insects breathe this air, and the lily pad itself breathes through stomata on its upper surface, the only part that touches air. Water lilies have hollow stems that transport air from their leaves down to their roots in the mud. The roots breathe this air, getting oxygen even though they're buried in anaerobic mud. The plant has created its own breathing system, an internal pipeline from air to underwater roots. Lotus flowers rise on tall stalks above the water, their blossoms opening to the sun. These flowers breathe fragrance into the air, and bees come to breathe it in, to gather pollen and nectar. The lotus breathes in one world and is breathed by another, plant and insect sharing the same air, the same moment of flowering. Water striders skate across the pond's surface, breathing air while standing on water. Their feet dimple the surface tension, but don't break through. They breathe the air above, hunt insects on the surface, and never get wet, living at the boundary between water and air, between two kinds of breathing. Beneath them, diving beetles carry air bubbles underwater, trapped against their bodies by fine hairs. These bubbles act like gills, extracting oxygen from the water as it diffuses into the bubble. The beetle can stay submerged for a long time, breathing from its portable air supply, hunting other aquatic insects in the weedy depths. Freshwater mussels breathe by filtering water through their gill. They sit on the bottom of ponds and streams, slowly pulling water in one siphon and expelling it from another. Each mussel filters gallons of water per day, cleaning it while extracting oxygen and food particles. The water that leaves them is clearer than the water that entered, purified by the mussel's breath. Tadpoles breathe with external gills when they first hatch, feathery structures that wave in the water like tiny plants. As they grow, they develop lungs, and eventually they'll become frogs that breathe air. The tadpole's transformation is partly a transformation of breathing, from water breather to air breather, from fish-like to amphibian. Adult frogs breathe through their skin as well as their lungs. A frog sitting in moss is breathing through every part of its moist skin, absorbing oxygen directly from the air or water around it. This is why frogs must stay damp. Their breathing depends on that thin layer of moisture on their skin. In a rainstorm, the whole forest breathes differently. Water streams down bark and drips from leaves. The air becomes saturated with moisture. Mosses swell, ferns drink deeply, and the soil absorbs water that will feed roots for days to come. The forest's breath becomes liquid, flowing, falling. Raindrops themselves contain dissolved gases from the atmosphere. When they hit the ground and sink into the soil, they carry oxygen down to roots and soil organisms. Rain is the sky's breath given to the earth, a gift of water and air combined. Fog drip from coastal redwoods can add 10 inches of water to the forest floor each year. The trees comb moisture from the fog, and it condenses on their needles and drips down. This water enters the soil and is breathed back out by the trees during the day, a cycle that the forest creates for itself, breathing in fog and breathing out moisture, sustaining itself even when rain is scarce. Under the redwoods, sorrel grows in the dim light. These small plants have adapted to deep shade, breathing slowly and carefully, making the most of the little light that filters through the canopy. They don't rush. They don't need bright sun. They've found their place in the breathing hierarchy of the forest. Banana slugs slide over the forest floor, breathing through a hole in their side, called a pneumostome. They're related to snails, but have lost most of their shell. And they breathe air, just like their shelled cousins. The slugs move slowly, leaving trails of slime, breathing the humid air beneath ferns and logs. Salamanders hide under the same logs, their skin thin and permeable. Some species have no lungs at all. They breathe entirely through their skin and the lining of their mouths. They must stay in damp places where their skin won't dry out and their breathing won't fail. The forest provides what they need: perpetual dampness, shadow, soft earth. Douglas fir trees release volatile organic compounds into the air, their chemical breath. These compounds give the forest its distinctive scent, fresh and slightly sweet. When you breathe in that forest smell, you're breathing what the trees have breathed out, sharing air with them directly, intimately. If you're finding this soothing, please do consider liking this video and checking out the full playlist for more gentle journeys through nature. Your support truly helps. Breathe in. The forest breathes with you. Breathe out. You breathe with the forest. There's no separation, just exchange, just connection, just the soft rhythm of life. Western hemlock grows in the shade of Douglas fir, breathing the filtered light. These trees are shade tolerant, able to photosynthesize and breathe even in dim conditions. They wait patiently under the canopy, growing slowly, breathing quietly until a gap opens and light floods in. Then their breathing quickens and they grow toward the opening. When an old giant falls, it creates a gap in the canopy, and suddenly light reaches the forest floor. Dormant seeds germinate, saplings surge upward, and the forest's collective breathing accelerates in that spot. The fallen tree itself becomes a nurse log, and seedlings sprout on its mossy bark, breathing in the nutrients released as the log decays. The fallen tree's roots slowly stop breathing as the tree dies. But the mycorrhizal network they were part of continues, still connecting living trees underground. The fungi redistribute resources, moving sugars from healthy trees to struggling ones, creating a shared breathing system that supports the whole forest. Scientists call this the wood wide web, a network of fungal threads that connects trees and allows them to communicate and share resources. Through this network, the forest breathes as one organism, supporting its members, redistributing what each tree breathes in and out, creating resilience through connection. Nurse logs support rows of young trees, all their roots reaching down into the decaying wood. These colonnade trees grow in straight lines, marking where a fallen giant once lay. They're breathing life from death, drawing nutrients from what their ancestor became, continuing the forest's breath across generations. Coastal forests breathe ocean air. The wind from the Pacific carries salt spray inland, and the trees taste it in their breath. Their needles are adapted to handle this salty air, able to breathe despite the challenging conditions. The ocean and forest breathe together, connected by the wind. Sitka spruce leans away from the prevailing wind, its branches longer on the leeward side. The tree's shape is a record of every breath of wind it has endured, every storm survived. It breathes despite being bent, despite being shaped by forces beyond its control, still growing, still living. Storm petrels ride the ocean gales, breathing easily even in winds that would knock a human down. They're built for this, light bones, powerful wings, an efficient metabolism that lets them breathe and fly for hours in the roughest weather. The storm is their home, and they breathe its wild air without fear. When the storm passes and the sea calms, kelp forests that were bent flat by the waves stand up again. The kelp fronds uncurl, spread toward the light, and resume their steady breathing, absorbing carbon dioxide from the seawater, releasing oxygen into the currents. The forest recovers, resilient, returning to its rhythm. Sea urchins graze on kelp, breathing through tube feet and tiny gills scattered across their bodies. They eat the kelp they breathe among, and if their population grows too large, they can create urchin barrens, areas where kelp has been eaten away and only bare rock remains. The balance between grazers and kelp is a balance of breathing systems. Sea otters eat sea urchins, and by doing so, they protect the kelp forests. Where otters hunt, urchins are kept in check and kelp thrives. The otters breathe at the surface between dives, their lungs working hard to supply oxygen for the hunt. Their breathing protects the breathing of the kelp, creating a cascade of breath through the ecosystem. Seals haul out on rocks to rest and breathe easy. After hours in the water, holding their breath during dives, they lie in the sun and simply breathe air without interruption. Their breathing slows, their bodies relax, and they sleep in the warm afternoon light. Breath becoming rest, rest becoming breath. Harbor seal pups breathe their first breath within minutes of being born on the beach. They're born during low tide, when the beach is exposed, and they must learn to breathe air immediately. Their mothers nurse them for only a few weeks, then leave them to learn to hunt and hold their breath on their own. Elephant seals can hold their breath for over an hour. They dive deep, hunting in the dark ocean, their heart rates slowed to conserve oxygen. When they finally surface, their exhalation is explosive, a rushing sigh that can be heard across the beach. Then they breathe rapidly, recharging before diving again. On the breeding beaches, male elephant seals fight for territory, and their breathing becomes labored and loud. They rear up, bellowing, their breath carrying threat and challenge. The fights are exhausting, and afterward, the males lie panting, their massive bodies heaving with each breath, recovering from the exertion. Seabirds nest on cliffs above these beaches, breathing the updrafts that rise from the ocean. Murres and guillemots stand on narrow ledges, their breathing calm despite the dizzying height. They're born to air and cliffs, as comfortable here as seals are in water. Puffins dig burrows in the clifftop soil, creating underground nests where they raise their chicks. Inside the burrow, parent and chick breathe the same close air, and the adult brings fish to feed the growing youngster. The chick's breath quickens with excitement when the parent arrives, then settles back to calm as it eats. Gannets dive from high in the air, plunging into the ocean like white arrows. They breathe deeply before the dive, filling their lungs and air sacs throughout their bodies. When they hit the water, the impact is tremendous, but their air-filled bodies absorb the shock. They swim underwater, catch a fish, and burst back to the surface where they can breathe again. The ocean surface is a breathing boundary. Below, fish and marine mammals hold their breath or extract oxygen from water. Above, birds breathe freely, resting on the waves between dives. The surface itself exchanges gases with the atmosphere, oxygen dissolving in, carbon dioxide bubbling out. In a slow breath, that covers the entire sea. Trade winds breathe across the tropical ocean, steady and warm. They push surface water westward, creating currents that distribute heat around the globe. These winds have blown for thousands of years, exhaled by the Earth's atmospheric circulation, breathing warmth from the equator toward the poles. If you've stayed with me this far through our gentle exploration, I'm so grateful. A like helps others find this peaceful place, and our playlist has many more stories waiting for you. The wind breathes, the water breathes, the air breathes, and you breathe with them all, part of the same system, the same soft exchange. Monsoon winds breathe moisture onto dry land. In India, Southeast Asia, parts of Africa, the arrival of the monsoon is the arrival of breath itself, rain after months of drought, the earth drinking deeply, the air suddenly thick with moisture and the scent of wet soil. The whole landscape exhales relief. Rice paddies flood with monsoon rain, and the rice plants breathe new life. Their roots adapt to the waterlogged conditions, developing parenchyma, special tissue with air channels that allow oxygen to reach the roots even underwater. The rice breathes through stems that rise above the water, pulling oxygen down to submerged roots. Water buffalo stand in the flooded paddies, breathing heavily in the humid heat. They help farmers plow the muddy fields, their large bodies moving slowly through the water, their breath visible as steam in the early morning coolness. They're domesticated, but their breath is still the breath of wild ancestors who lived in swamps and wetlands. Egrets follow the buffalo, breathing easily as they hunt for insects and frogs disturbed by the buffalo's movements. These white birds stride through the shallow water, their breathing calm and measured, their movements graceful. They're patient hunters, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Lotus flowers bloom in ponds and slow waterways, their petals opening at dawn. The flowers breathe fragrance that attracts beetles who come to mate and feed on pollen. By evening, the petals close, trapping the beetles inside overnight. The flower's breath becomes a chamber, a trap, a strategy for pollination. At dawn, the lotus petals open again, releasing the beetles, who fly away covered in pollen to another flower. The lotus's breathing rhythm, opening and closing day and night, is also a reproductive rhythm, a way of sharing genes through the air with the help of unsuspecting insects. Mangroves breathe at the edge of tropical coasts, their roots exposed at low tide, their branches reaching into the sky. These trees process salt water, filter it through their roots, and breathe out fresh water vapor from their leaves. They're transformers, turning salt to fresh, creating clouds that drift inland and become rain. Mud skippers breathe air in the mangrove mud flats. These small fish can survive out of water for hours, breathing through their skin and the lining of their mouth as long as they stay damp. They skip across the mud on muscular pectoral fins, hunting insects, more comfortable in air than in water. Fiddler crabs breathe through gills, but can survive in air by keeping their gills moist. The males wave their oversized claws to attract females, and this waving requires energy, requires oxygen, requires breath. The mud flat is alive with their breathing, thousands of crabs processing air and water at the boundary between land and sea. Crocodiles lie in the shallows, breathing slowly, barely moving. Their nostrils are positioned on top of their snouts, allowing them to breathe while almost entirely submerged. They can hold their breath for over an hour while waiting underwater for prey. Their metabolism slowed, their patience absolute. When a crocodile lunges at prey, its breathing spikes, short, rapid breaths as it expends tremendous energy in a brief, violent explosion of movement. Then back to stillness, back to slow breathing, back to waiting. The breath of the predator is a rhythm of calm and intensity, rest and action. Hippos breathe air, but spend most of their time in water. They can hold their breath for 5 minutes or more while walking along the river bottom. At the surface, they breathe through nostrils that close automatically when they submerge. Their breath creates ripples in the calm water, gentle circles spreading outward. At night, hippos leave the water to graze on land. They breathe the cool night air as they crop grass, their massive bodies moving surprisingly quietly through the darkness. By dawn, they're back in the water, breathing again at the surface, their skin needing the moisture and coolness the river provides. African fish eagles hunt along these same rivers, breathing the air high above the water. They dive to catch fish, plunging briefly into the water, then rising with heavy wing beats, a fish clutched in their talons. Their breathing is powerful, supporting the strength needed to lift heavy prey into the air. The eagle's call is breath made into sound, a wild, ringing cry that echoes across the water. Other birds hear this call and know the eagle is near. The breath carries information, warning, territoriality. It's communication through exhaled air, shaped by voice. Giraffes breathe through the longest trachea of any land animal. Their necks are so long that each breath must travel several feet, from nose to lungs. Despite this, they breathe efficiently, their large lungs processing air to fuel their enormous bodies. When a giraffe runs, its breathing synchronizes with its gallop, breath and movement becoming one rhythm. Acacia trees that giraffes feed on breathe a warning when their leaves are being eaten. They release ethylene gas, a signal to other acacias nearby. Those trees respond by producing tannins in their leaves, making them bitter and less palatable. The trees breathe chemical messages to each other, protecting themselves through shared breath. This is called talking trees, though it's not really talking, it's breathing. The trees exhale chemicals that neighboring trees inhale, and this shared breath triggers changes. It's a conversation conducted entirely in gas, in molecules floating on the wind, in the invisible language of organic compounds. Elephants breathe through their trunks, which are both nose and tool. They can smell water miles away, breathing in the scent on the wind and walking toward it across the savanna. Their breath is powerful enough to blow dust over their backs, to spray water, to rumble infrasound calls that other elephants hear and feel more than a mile away. Baby elephants learn to control their trunks by watching their mothers. At first, the trunk is unwieldy, difficult to breathe through and move at the same time. But gradually they learn, and their breath becomes coordinated with trunk movement, with smelling, with drinking, with the complex tasks a trunk must perform. The savanna breathes in seasonal waves. During the dry season, breath is minimal. Grass is dormant, trees conserving water, animals moving to where water remains. Then the rains come, and suddenly everything breathes deeply again. Grass grows inches per day, trees leaf out, flowers bloom, and the whole landscape exhales life. Take a moment to breathe with the savanna, with the rhythm of rain and drought. growth, and rest. If this is helping you relax, please leave a comment. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Everything adapts its breath to its circumstances. Everything finds its rhythm. Everything continues. Termite mounds on the savanna breathe through carefully designed air channels. The mounds can be taller than a person, and inside, millions of termites live in carefully controlled conditions. The mound structure creates convection currents. Warm air rises through the center and exits at the top, while cool air is drawn in through underground channels. The whole structure breathes, keeping the termites comfortable even in extreme heat. Inside the mound, termites cultivate fungus gardens. The fungi breathe, decomposing plant matter that the termites bring in. The carbon dioxide from this breathing is vented out of the mound, and fresh oxygen is drawn in. The termites have created a breathing building, a living architecture that maintains itself through airflow. Aardvarks dig into termite mounds with powerful claws, breathing the dust and dirt their digging creates. They have long tongues that can extend deep into the tunnels, licking up termites by the hundreds. The aardvark's breathing is audible, snuffling and grunting as it excavates, focused entirely on reaching the food inside. After the aardvark leaves, other animals use its excavations. Warthogs shelter in abandoned aardvark burrows, breathing easy in the cool underground chambers. Owls nest in the holes in termite mounds. One animal's breath-powered digging becomes another's home. Meerkats stand sentry while their clan forages, breathing the morning air, watching for predators. The sentinel's breath is held in moments of high alert, then released in a warning call if danger appears. The whole group responds instantly, diving for their burrows, their breathing rapid with alarm. Underground in the burrow complex, baby meerkats breathe in safety, while adults hunt scorpions and beetles on the surface. The burrows have multiple entrances and chambers, allowing air to circulate, keeping the atmosphere breathable even deep underground. The meerkat family breathes together in their shared home, safe from the heat and predators above. Lions breathe slowly in the shade, conserving energy during the hot day. Their breath is almost lazy, unhurried, the breath of apex predators who have no need to rush. But at night, when they hunt, their breathing changes, faster, focused, powering muscles as they stalk prey through the darkness. After a kill, lions pant heavily, their sides heaving with exhaustion. Hunting is hard work, even for lions, and their breath shows it. They rest with the kill, breathing gradually slowing as they recover. Then they eat, and their breathing settles into contentment, into satisfaction. Vultures circle high above, breathing the thermals, rising columns of warm air that lift them higher without the need to flap. They soar for hours, breathing easily at altitude, their sharp eyes scanning the ground for carrion. Their breathing is the breath of patience, of watching, of waiting for death to provide a meal. When vultures descend to feed, they breathe the smell of decay without distress. Their digestive systems are adapted to handle bacteria that would sicken other animals. They breathe in what others would find repulsive, and they transform it, eating the dead, cleaning the landscape, preventing disease from spreading. Hyenas breathe in hoots and giggles, sounds that carry across the savanna at night. Their vocalizations are complex, conveying information about food, danger, social status. Each sound is shaped breath, air pushed through vocal cords in specific ways to create meaning. Jackals breathe the cool night air as they hunt small prey, rodents, birds, insects. Their breathing is quiet, controlled, the breath of a careful hunter who relies on stealth rather than power. They move through the darkness, guided by scent and sound, their breath barely audible. Bat-eared foxes breathe as they listen. These small foxes have enormous ears, and they use them to hear termites moving underground. They breathe quietly, holding still, listening with intense concentration. Then they dig rapidly, breathing hard with the effort, excavating termites and eating them by the dozen. Zebras breathe in herds, their collective breath creating a soft sound like wind through grass. They graze together, each one breathing, chewing, watching for predators. If one zebra's breathing changes to alarm, the whole herd reacts, ready to run. Their breath keeps them connected, aware, alive. Wildebeest migrate in millions across the Serengeti, breathing dust as they travel. Their hooves raise clouds that hang in the air for hours, and they breathe this dust-laden air without complaint. They're following the rains, following the grass, their breath synchronized with the ancient rhythm of the seasons. River crossings are moments of panic and chaos. The wildebeest plunge into the water, breathing frantically as they swim across crocodile-infested currents. Some don't make it, but most do, emerging on the other side, shaking off water, breathing in relief. The breath of survival, hard won. On the far bank, they continue walking, breathing, settling back to normal. The migration continues, driven by instinct and the need to eat, to drink, to breathe another day. They move like a breathing river themselves, flowing across the land. Flamingos stand in soda lakes, breathing air that's harsh with alkaline salts. They filter feed on algae and tiny crustaceans, their specialized beaks sifting water, their breath steady and calm despite the chemical harshness of their environment. They've adapted to conditions few other birds could tolerate. The lakes they feed in are pink with algae, and the flamingos themselves turn pink from the carotenoids in their food. Their breath carries the scent of salt and algae, the smell of the unique ecosystem they inhabit. They breathe it without thought, as natural to them as forest air is to a warbler. If you're still here, still breathing gently along with these stories, thank you. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and you'll find many more calming journeys in the playlist. The earth breathes in so many ways, through so many lives. Each breath is perfect for the creature breathing it, and your breath is perfect for you. Mountain gorillas breathe the thin air of high-altitude forests. They live in the Virunga Mountains, where the air is cool and mist hangs in the trees most mornings. Their breath forms clouds in the cold air as they forage for vegetation, their massive chests rising and falling with slow, powerful breaths. Baby gorillas cling to their mother's fur, breathing in the warmth and scent of safety. The mother's breath is steady, reassuring, and the baby synchronizes its breathing with hers. This is the breath of bonding, of connection, of trust. The baby learns to breathe easy in a world that can be dangerous, protected by the strength of the family group. Silverback males beat their chests in displays, their breath coming in rapid bursts with the exertion. The sound echoes through the forest, a demonstration of strength and dominance. After the display, the silverback's breathing gradually slows, and he settles back to calmly eating bamboo, his point made without violence. mountain forests breathe coolness into the valleys below. At night, cold air flows downslope like a gentle river, settling in low areas, creating temperature inversions. Plants in the valley breathe this cold air, experiencing different conditions than plants just a few hundred feet higher on the slope. Alpine wildflowers breathe in the brief mountain summer, their metabolism racing to complete their life cycles before winter returns. They bloom in carpets of color, each flower breathing rapidly, trying to attract the few pollinators that exist at high altitude. There's urgency in their breath, but also beauty. Picas gather hay in the mountains, breathing rapidly as they work. These small relatives of rabbits don't hibernate, so they must collect enough dried grass to feed themselves through the long winter. They make trip after trip, breathing hard, their tiny bodies working tirelessly. The hay piles they create are breathing platforms. The grass continues to release moisture and gases as it dries. Hawks ride updrafts on mountain slopes, breathing easily as they soar. The warming slope creates rising air, and the hawks use this breath of the mountain to gain altitude without effort. They spiral upward, breathing the thin air at altitude, their eyes scanning for prey far below. Clouds form on mountain peaks when moist air rises and cools. The water vapor condenses into droplets, and the peak disappears into its own created mist. The mountain is breathing out clouds, changing the weather by its mere presence. Rain that falls on one side of the mountain might become snow on the other, all from the same breath of rising air. Glaciers breathe in winter when snow falls and accumulates, adding mass. They breathe out in summer when meltwater runs from their snouts, feeding rivers below. This breathing happens over seasons, over years, in a rhythm slower than human time, but powerful nonetheless. Glacial meltwater is the clearest water on Earth. It's been locked in ice for decades or centuries, protected from contamination, and when it melts, it's nearly pure. This water carries the breath of ancient snow, of winter storms from long ago, released now to flow through summer valleys. Salmon swim up glacial streams to spawn, breathing the cold, oxygen-rich water. The rivers are fed by melting ice, and the water is so cold it would be painful for a human to touch. But the salmon thrive in it. Their breath is adapted to these extreme conditions, to the last push of their lives. After spawning, the salmon die, and their bodies release nutrients into the stream. These nutrients feed insects, which breathe the water through gills. The insects are eaten by birds, which breathe air. The breath of the salmon continues through the ecosystem, transformed, passed along, never lost. Glacial lakes hold meltwater in turquoise pools, the color coming from rock flour, finely ground stone in the water. The lake breathes through its surface, exchanging gases with the air above. In winter, when the lake freezes, this breathing nearly stops, but fish beneath the ice continue to breathe, the oxygen dissolved in the water. Ice itself can contain bubbles of ancient air trapped when snow fell and compressed into glacier ice. Scientists core these glaciers and analyze the air bubbles, learning what the atmosphere was like hundreds or thousands of years ago. The glacier holds breaths from the past, preserved in frozen time. Permafrost in the Arctic holds even older breaths, organic matter from plants and animals that died millennia ago, frozen before they could fully decompose. As long as the permafrost stays frozen, this carbon stays locked away. But if it thaws, Microbes will breathe on this organic matter, releasing carbon dioxide and methane that have been stored for thousands of years. The tundra surface is soft and spongy in summer, full of moss and lichen and low-growing plants. Walk on it, and your footprints remain for years. The plants grow so slowly that damage persists. This is breathing at its slowest, life at the edge of what's possible, patient beyond measure. Arctic poppies turn to follow the sun, their petals forming small parabolic reflectors that focus warmth into the flower's center. Insects bask in this warmth, breathing in the heat as well as the air. The flower's breath creates a microclimate, a tiny warm spot in the cold tundra. Caribou calves are born in late spring on the tundra, and they must be able to walk within hours. They breathe their first breaths in a harsh place, but they're adapted to it. Within days, they're traveling with the herd, breathing hard as they keep pace with their mothers. Wolf packs follow the caribou herds, breathing the scent of prey on the wind. They can smell caribou from miles away when the wind is right. Their breath is patient, hunting breath, waiting for the right moment, the weak individual, the opportunity. When they finally chase, their breath becomes fierce and focused. Ravens follow the wolves, waiting for leftovers. These intelligent birds breathe the cold Arctic air without difficulty, their black feathers absorbing what little warmth the sun provides. They call to each other in voices like coughing, like laughing, breath shaped into complex communication. Snowy owls breathe silently as they hunt lemmings. Their feathers are specially adapted for quiet flight, allowing them to approach prey without being heard. They breathe slowly, conserving energy during the long hunt, then breathe rapidly after the strike, the exertion of catching prey requiring extra oxygen. There's so much peace in these rhythms. If you're enjoying this, remember to check the playlist for more stories. And a like truly helps others find this calm space too. Everything breathing, everything connected, everything part of one vast exchange of air and life. Arctic foxes change their breathing patterns with the seasons. In winter, their metabolism slows and their breathing becomes more efficient, conserving energy in the extreme cold. They curl into tight balls with their tails over their noses, breathing into their own fur to warm the air before it reaches their lungs. In summer, Arctic foxes breathe faster, panting to cool down. Even in the Arctic, summer can be warm, and the foxes shed their white winter coats for brown summer fur. Their breath becomes visible, cooling, moisture evaporating from their tongues and mouths, carrying heat away from their bodies. Lemmings breathe under the snow in winter. They create tunnel systems in the subnivean zone, the space between the snow and the ground. Here, protected from the worst cold and from predators, they breathe, breed, and survive. The snow above them insulates their breathing space, holding in warmth rising from the earth. When snow melts in spring, the lemmings' grass nest and tunnels are revealed. The ground is crisscrossed with paths, evidence of a hidden winter world. The lemmings themselves scatter, breathing in the open air now, no longer protected by snow. Owls and foxes hunt them intensively in these exposed conditions. Walruses haul out on ice floes to rest, breathing in great wheezing snorts. Their breath is loud and labored sounding, but they're actually quite comfortable, lying in piles together. They can hold their breath for half an hour while diving for clams, their whiskers helping them feel in the dark water for food. When walrus calves are born, They can swim immediately, but they nurse at the surface, breathing air while feeding. The mother's breath mingles with the calf's, both floating together in the icy water. The calf will stay with its mother for 2 years, learning to hold its breath, learning to dive, learning to survive. Narwhals breathe through blowholes on top of their heads. These whales with spiral tusks live in the Arctic year-round, navigating between ice floes, breathing when they find open water. Their breath in the freezing air creates tall spouts of mist, visible for a long distance across the ice. Orcas breathe in coordinated patterns when they hunt in pods. The whales surface together, exhale together, inhale together, and dive together. Their synchronized breathing is part of their coordination as hunters, their unity as a family group. The breath of the pod is one breath, many bodies moving as one. Under the ice, the ocean breathes differently. The ice forms a barrier between water and air, slowing the exchange of gases. But in leads, cracks in the ice, water exchanges gases rapidly, breathing with the air above. Seals and whales use these leads to breathe, gathering at the openings, their lives dependent on finding these breathing holes. Phytoplankton bloom under the ice when spring arrives and light begins to penetrate. These microscopic plants breathe carbon dioxide from the water and release oxygen, creating the base of the Arctic food chain. Their breath is invisible but essential, feeding krill, which feed fish, which feed seals, which feed bears and orcas. Polar bears breathe the scent of seals on the wind. They can smell a seal den under several feet of snow from over a mile away. Their breath is patient as they stalk, then explosive as they attack, breaking through the snow and ice to reach the seal below. After feeding, polar bears breathe contentedly as they rest. They might not eat again for days or weeks, so they rest and conserve energy, their breathing slow and calm. Cubs play nearby, their breath quick and excited, not yet understanding the need for patience and conservation. Beluga whales are called canaries of the sea for their varied vocalizations. Every sound they make is breath-shaped into communication, clicks, whistles, chirps, and bell-like calls. They breathe socially, their sounds carrying through the water, keeping the pod connected even when visibility is low. Jellyfish pulse through the water, and though they don't breathe in the traditional sense, they do exchange gases across their thin bodies. Oxygen diffuses in, carbon dioxide diffuses out, and the jellyfish's pulsing movement helps this process. They're breathing without lungs, without gills, just through their skin. Sea angels, tiny swimming snails, beat their wing-like appendages to move through the water. They breathe dissolved oxygen through their skin as they hunt sea butterflies, another type of swimming snail. Their breath is elegant, matching the beauty of their translucent bodies drifting through the Arctic Ocean. The deep ocean breathes very slowly. Cold water sinks at the poles and flows along the ocean bottom toward the equator, a journey that takes hundreds of years. This deep water carries oxygen with it, supporting life in the deepest trenches. The ocean breathes in circulation, in currents that move across the globe over centuries. Tube worms at hydrothermal vents breathe sulfur compounds from the Earth's deep breath. They have no digestive system. Bacteria inside them process the chemicals, and the worms absorb what the bacteria produce. This is breath divorced from photosynthesis, from the sun, powered entirely by the Earth's internal heat. giant isopods scavenge the deep ocean floor, breathing water through gills. These enormous relatives of pillbugs walk slowly across the abyssal plains, breathing in the cold, dark water, searching for the rare fallen whale or fish that provides food. Their breath is patient, adapted to a place where food is scarce and everything happens slowly. Sperm whales dive deeper than almost any other mammal, holding their breath for over an hour as they hunt giant squid in the darkness. Their lungs collapse under pressure, pushing air into rigid passageways where it won't cause problems. They breathe the deep ocean by becoming part of it, their bodies adapted to crushing pressure and cold. When a sperm whale surfaces, its blow is angled forward, distinctive among whales. The whale breathes dozens of times rapidly, recharging its oxygen stores. Whale watchers identify species by the shape and angle of the blow. Each species has its own breathing signature, visible from a distance. If you've journeyed this far with me through the breathing world, thank you for your peaceful presence. A comment about your favorite moment in this story would be wonderful to read. And don't forget the playlist for more gentle explorations. The deep breathes, the high breathes, everything between breathes. And here you are, breathing with it all. Baleen whales feed by breathing water through their mouths. They take in enormous gulps of seawater, then push it out through baleen plates that trap krill and small fish. The whale's feeding is a kind of breathing, water in, water out, nourishment extracted from the flow. Humpback whales sing, and their songs are breath made into art. The males sing complex songs that can last 20 minutes or more, repeating patterns and slowly evolving them over seasons. All whales in a region sing the same song, learning changes from each other, creating a culture of breath and sound. When humpbacks migrate from polar feeding grounds to tropical breeding grounds, they may not eat for months. They live on stored fat, their breathing powered by reserves built up during the rich feeding season. Their migration is a journey between two kinds of breathing, the feeding breath of summer, the fasting breath of winter. Coral reefs breathe at night when polyps extend their tentacles to feed. During the day, the reef looks solid and still, but at night, it comes alive, and the collective breathing and feeding of millions of polyps creates currents in the water. The whole reef pulses with life. Parrotfish sleep in mucus bubbles they create around themselves. The bubble masks their scent from predators, and they breathe inside it, safe and hidden. In the morning, they emerge and break the bubble, starting their day of grazing on algae and coral. Cleaner wrasse breathe while they work, picking parasites off larger fish. They set up cleaning stations where other fish come to be serviced, and the wrasse breathe steadily as they inspect every surface, eating parasites and dead skin. The relationship is based on trust. The larger fish could eat the wrasse but doesn't, because the cleaning service is too valuable. Sea turtles breathe air but spend most of their time underwater. They surface briefly to breathe, then dive again, able to slow their heart rate and metabolism to make each breath last longer. When they sleep underwater, they can remain submerged for hours, their breathing suspended, their bodies resting in a state similar to meditation. Green sea turtles return to the same beaches where they were born to lay their own eggs. They breathe heavily as they drag themselves up the beach, their bodies made for water, awkward on land. They dig nests, lay eggs, cover them, and return to the sea, breathing easier once they're back in water. Baby turtles hatch at night and scramble for the ocean, breathing their first air as they emerge from the sand. They must reach the water quickly before predators find them. Those that make it into the waves breathe a gasp of relief, perhaps, as they begin swimming, their lives as sea creatures truly beginning. Seagrass meadows breathe nutrients from turtle droppings. Green turtles graze on seagrass, and their waste fertilizes the meadow, helping it grow. The breath of the grass feeds the turtle. The breath of the turtle feeds the grass, in a circle that sustains both. Dolphin pods breathe in synchrony as they swim and hunt together. When they surface, they all breathe at nearly the same time, their blowholes opening and closing in rhythm. This synchronized breathing is part of their social cohesion, their unity as a group. Dolphins play with bubbles, breathing them out underwater and then chasing them, biting them, creating rings and spirals of air. This playful breathing serves no survival purpose. It's just joy, just experimentation, just the pleasure of breath made visible and interactive. River dolphins live in murky water where vision is useless. They breathe at the surface, listening to the world through echolocation clicks. Each breath is a brief return to air before diving back into the dark water to hunt fish by sound alone. Amazon river dolphins are pink, their color coming from blood vessels close to the skin. They breathe the warm, oxygen-poor water of flooded forests, navigating between trees, hunting fish in the branches. Their breath is adapted to water that changes with the seasons, rising and falling by dozens of feet. Manatees breathe air, but graze underwater on seagrass and aquatic plants. They're gentle giants, their breathing slow and peaceful, their lives spent in warm, shallow water, eating and resting. They surface every few minutes to breathe, their whiskered noses breaking the surface quietly. Baby manatees nurse underwater, but they must surface to breathe. The mother helps them learn the rhythm. Breathe, dive, feed, surface, breathe again. It's a gentle teaching, passed from mother to calf, the basics of life as an aquatic mammal. In freshwater springs, manatees gather in winter, seeking warm water. Dozens might cluster together, breathing in the clear spring water, their bodies touching, their breathing creating ripples that spread across the pool. The springs breathe out warm water from deep in the earth, and the manatees breathe in the warmth, surviving the winter in this geothermal refuge. Springs bubble up from aquifers, underground reservoirs of water that have been filtered through rock and soil for years or decades. The water emerges clear and clean, saturated with dissolved minerals and gases. The spring is the Earth's exhalation, water that fell as rain long ago, finally returning to the surface. Aquatic plants grow thick in springs, breathing out oxygen into the clear water. The water is so transparent that you can see every leaf, every stem, every bubble rising from photosynthesizing plants. The spring is a window into the underwater world's breathing. Take a moment now, and if this journey has brought you peace, please consider liking this video and exploring the playlist. Your engagement helps this calm content reach others who need it. Water rises, water falls, breath cycles. Everything continues soft and certain and endlessly renewing. Spring water flows into streams, and streams flow into rivers, carrying the earth's breath toward the ocean. Along the way, the water breathes with the air, with the plants, with the fish and insects and every living thing it touches. The river is a breathing pathway, connecting mountains to sea, Mayflies hatch in enormous numbers from rivers, their synchronized emergence timed to overwhelm predators. They breathe air for the first time as adults, their wings drying, their bodies transforming from aquatic nymphs to flying adults in minutes. Their breath is brief. Most species live only a day or two as adults, but it's enough. Swallows swoop over the water, breathing rapidly as they catch mayflies in flight. Their breath powers acrobatic flight, sharp turns, incredible speed. They're breathing machines, their whole bodies designed for efficient oxygen use, for the energy needed to catch insects on the wing. Kingfishers perch above the water, breathing calmly as they watch for fish. When they spot prey, they dive with breath held, plunging underwater, grabbing the fish and bursting back into air. They return to their perch, breathe normally again, and swallow the fish head first. Otters play in the water, breathing between dives. They chase each other, slide down muddy banks, and hunt fish with graceful underwater swims. Their breath sounds like chirping when they're excited, like purring when they're content. They breathe joy as much as air. Beaver ponds slow the water, allowing sediment to settle. The clear water breathes more oxygen from the air, supporting more aquatic life. The pond becomes rich with insects, amphibians, fish, and plants, all breathing together in the still water the beaver created. Dragonflies hunt above the pond, their flight powered by efficient breathing. They have spiracles along their bodies, and air enters through these holes, traveling through tracheal tubes directly to their muscles. Their breathing bypasses the blood, delivering oxygen straight where it's needed for instant energy. Dragonfly nymphs breathe underwater through gills in their rectum. They draw water in and expel it, both breathing and creating jet propulsion with the same action. When threatened, they can shoot away suddenly, powered by their own breath. When a dragonfly nymph is ready to become an adult, it crawls out of the water and its skin splits open. The adult emerges, breathing air for the first time, its wings unfurling and drying in the sun. This is transformation through breath, from water breather to air breather, from bottom dweller to sky dancer. Cattails grow at the pond's edge, their roots in water, their leaves breathing air. They have parenchyma tissue that transports oxygen from leaves down to roots, allowing the roots to breathe even in waterlogged, oxygen-poor mud. The cattails bridge two worlds with their breathing. Red-winged blackbirds nest in the cattails, breathing the marsh air as they sing. The males have bright red shoulder patches and loud, distinctive calls, breath shaped into territory and courtship. Their singing is competitive breathing, each male trying to outsing the others. Marsh wrens build multiple dummy nests, and the female chooses one to actually use. The male breathes song to attract her, then breathes labor as he builds nest after nest, woven into the reeds. His breath goes into creation, into architecture, into the hope of reproduction. Muskrats swim through the marsh, breathing at the surface between dives. They eat cattail roots and build lodges from cattails and mud. Their lodges have underwater entrances and dry chambers above water level where they breathe in safety, protected from predators. Mink hunt muskrats, breathing the scent of prey along the water's edge. They're sleek predators, equally at home in water or on land. Their breathing adapted to both environments. They can hold their breath while swimming underwater, hunting fish and muskrats in their own element. Great blue herons stand motionless in shallow water, breathing so quietly you might not notice they're alive. They're waiting for fish, and their patience is legendary. When they finally strike, their breathing quickens with the sudden movement, then slows again as they return to stillness. The heron swallows fish whole, and you can see the fish slide down its long neck. The bird's breathing pauses during swallowing, then resumes normally. After eating, the heron might stand and digest for an hour, breathing peacefully, letting the food settle. Turtles bask on logs, breathing air while their shells warm in the sun. They need to raise their body temperature to digest food and to be active. Their breathing is slow and deliberate, their lives unhurried. Some turtles can live for over a century, breathing through decades of seasons, witnessing changes humans never see. Painted turtles breathe through their skin when they hibernate underwater. In winter, when the pond freezes, they settle into the mud and slow their metabolism to almost nothing. They absorb just enough oxygen through their skin to survive, breathing without lungs, without movement, in a state of suspended animation. In spring, when the ice melts and the water warms, the turtles wake. They swim to the surface and breathe deeply, filling their lungs, their bodies warming, their metabolism increasing. They've survived winter through the slowest possible breath, and now they return to active breathing, to life. Wood frogs freeze solid in winter. Ice crystals form in their bodies, and they stop breathing entirely. But they don't die. Their cells are protected by glucose that acts like antifreeze. When they thaw in spring, they breathe again, their hearts start beating again, and they hop away as if nothing happened. Salamanders migrate to vernal pools in spring to breed. These temporary ponds form from snowmelt and rain, and they're perfect breeding sites because they have no fish to eat salamander eggs. The adults breathe air as they travel overland, sometimes walking hundreds of yards through the night. Fairy shrimp hatch in vernal pools, breathing the brief water. These tiny crustaceans complete their entire life cycle in the few weeks or months the pool exists. When the pool dries up, they die, but their eggs survive in the dried mud, waiting for next year's rain, next year's breath of water. Your breath right now is part of this same system. You're breathing molecules that have been breathed by frogs and trees, by whales and wolves, by every living thing. If this thought brings you peace, please share that feeling by liking this video and checking the playlist for more. You're connected. You're breathing the same air. You're part of the Earth's one great breath. Spring rain fills the vernal pools again each year, and the cycle continues. The rain itself is breath, water evaporated from oceans and forests, carried inland by wind, falling to earth and seeping into the ground. It becomes groundwater, feeding springs and wells, eventually flowing back to the sea to be breathed out again as vapor. Clouds breathe in formation. Cumulus clouds form when warm, moist air rises and cools and water vapor condenses. The cloud grows as more air rises into it, breathing in from below. When conditions change, the cloud dissolves, breathing out, its moisture evaporating back into invisible vapor. Thunderstorms breathe powerfully. The updrafts in a mature thunderstorm can be over 100 miles per hour, pulling air up violently, breathing in from the ground and breathing out at the top where the anvil-shaped cloud spreads. Lightning is created by this breathing, by the separation of charges in the violent updrafts and downdrafts. Rain falls from the storm, and the smell of rain, petrichor, is partially the earth breathing out. When rain hits dry soil, it releases compounds that soil bacteria produce. You're smelling the breath of microbes, of earth, of life that lives in the ground and is awakened by moisture. After the rain, mushrooms emerge, breathing spores into the moist air. The mushroom is just the fruiting body of the fungus, and its purpose is reproduction. It breathes out millions of spores, microscopic packets of life that drift on the wind, hoping to find the right conditions to germinate and grow. Rainbows form when sunlight passes through raindrops still suspended in the air. You're seeing light refracted through the storm's breath, through water still falling or hanging as mist. The rainbow is temporary, visible only while the conditions are perfect, then fading as the storm moves on and the air clears. The forest, after rain, breathes more visibly. Moisture rises from leaves as vapor, creating a soft haze among the trees. The whole forest is exhaling water, and if you walk through it, you can feel the humidity, smell the rich scent of wet earth and plant life, sense the breathing happening all around you. Fungi breathe carbon dioxide into the soil, and plant roots breathe it in. The network of life underground is a network of breathing, exchanges happening in darkness, in the spaces between soil particles, in the water films around roots and fungal threads. The ground beneath you is alive with breath. Desert soil crusts breathe very carefully. These crusts are made of cyanobacteria, lichens, and mosses that grow on the surface of desert soil. They breathe slowly, using moisture from dew and rare rains, holding the soil in place and preventing erosion. Walking on these crusts can destroy decades of growth, can interrupt breathing that took years to establish. Desert after rain is a miracle of quickened breath. Seeds that have waited months or years suddenly germinate. Flowers bloom in days, breathe intensely, set seed, and die back, all in the brief window when water is available. Their breath is concentrated life, compressed into the shortest possible time. Cactus flowers open at night, breathing fragrance to attract sphinx moths. These moths hover like hummingbirds, breathing rapidly to power their flight, drinking nectar while pollinating the flowers. The cactus breathes out scent, the moth breathes in and carries pollen, and both benefit from the exchange. Desert tortoises dig burrows where the air is cooler and more humid than the surface. They breathe this modified air, conserving moisture, conserving energy. In the hottest part of summer, they may estivate, a summer version of hibernation, breathing minimally, waiting for cooler weather. Kangaroo rats never drink water. They get all the moisture they need from seeds they eat, and they breathe very efficiently, recapturing moisture from their own breath. Their nasal passages cool the air they exhale, condensing water vapor, recycling breath into hydration. Roadrunners breathe rapidly after running. These birds can run at speeds over 20 miles per hour, and they need to breathe hard to power their legs. They hunt lizards, snakes, and insects, and their breath is the breath of the chase, of speed, of survival. Saguaro cacti breathe at night to conserve water during the day. They open their stomata after sunset, taking in carbon dioxide when it's cool, storing it in the form of malic acid. During the day, they close their stomata and process the stored carbon dioxide, photosynthesizing without losing much water. It's called chem photosynthesis, crassulacean acid metabolism, and it's a way of breathing suited to deserts. Ancient saguaros can live for 200 years, breathing through droughts and floods, through countless sunrises and sunsets. They grow slowly, breathing patiently, their arms reaching toward the sky. Some saguaros develop holes where woodpeckers or flickers have nested, and these holes become homes for owls, bats, and other desert creatures seeking shelter. At night, bats emerge from these holes in cacti and from caves and buildings, breathing the cool desert air. They echolocate by sending out calls and listening to the echoes, breathing between calls, hunting insects in the darkness. The desert night is full of their breathing, their clicking, their silent flight. Moths breathe in the night air, their wings beating in patterns too fast to see clearly. They're drawn to lights, to flowers, to scents on the wind. Their breath is brief. Most moths live only a few days or weeks, but in that time, they mate, lay eggs, and continue their species. When dawn comes, the desert breathes a shift. Nocturnal animals return to shelter, diurnal animals emerge, and the temperature begins to rise. The breathing of the desert changes with the light, with the heat, always adapting, always continuing. And now, as this story comes to a close, I invite you to simply breathe. Feel your own breath, slow and steady. You've traveled through so many ways the earth breathes, through forests and oceans, through mountains and deserts, through creatures great and small. All of it is connected. All of it includes you. Close your eyes if you'd like. Feel the air moving in and out of your lungs. You're part of this ancient rhythm, this exchange that's been happening for billions of years. The oxygen you breathe was created by plants and phytoplankton. The carbon dioxide you exhale will be absorbed by trees and grasses. You're not separate from the earth's breathing. You are the earth's breathing. Rest in this knowledge. Let it settle around you like a soft blanket. Everything is breathing. Everything is cycling. Everything is connected in one vast, gentle rhythm. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If these stories have brought you peace, please share them. Like this video, explore the playlist, leave a comment. But most of all, just breathe. Softly, easily, perfectly. Good night, and breathe well.